Welcome to All Twang TV. I am your host, Greer Howard. Today we are at Eddie's Attic in Decatur, Georgia, and I have the absolute pleasure of being here with Billy Joe Shaver. So Billy Joe has been in the country music industry for well over 40 years. Your debut album in 1973 is a classic, old five and dimers like me. So Billy Joe, let's talk about how you got into country music and specifically outlaw country.
Well, the outlaw part was kind of more like an outcast. And I started writing songs, well, actually, yeah, I guess you'd call them songs, but they're more like poems when I was about 8 years old. And I used to sell papers on the corner in Corsicana, Texas, and trying to make a little bit of a living because my grandmother raised me, and it was during the Depression, you know. And I'm 76 now. I almost forgot. And I'm sorry I didn't show you. I meant to. My name's Shaver, and I didn't even show you. Oh, well. Anyhow, the country has always been what I liked. I like the simplicity of it. You don't need to be greased, you know, like you grease a wheel or something. Mm-hmm. And it's real simple, and I got a corner on all that. And I got into Nashville in '66, actually, and went to work for Bobby Bear in '69, and stayed in his office, which is a little smaller than this, and $50 a week he'd play me, and sometimes his check would bounce, and we weren't doing much better. He wasn't doing much better than me, and but I caught Waylon and I was down at Dripping Springs reunion, first 4th of July reunion they had down there, and I was singing Willie the Wandering Gypsy and Me in a little trailer, one of them little peanut trailers, and it had a back part, and Waylon and another fella come out of there, and Waylon busted out of there and said, "Whose song is that?" Because we was passing the guitar around. There's about 3 of us, wasn't much room really, and he said, whose song is that? And I said, well, it's mine. He says, well, okay. He says, I'd like to learn that and record it. And I said, okay. And he sat down there with me and learned it and everything. And he said, you got any more of them cowboy songs? And that's what I was doing at that time. And I said, yeah, I got a sack full of them.
And that sackful, he actually filled up his album, Honky Tonk Heroes with, which really put you on the map. Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about that experience and that collaboration with Waylon Jennings.
Well, how it happened was he told me to come up to Nashville and that he would record all those albums. And I mean, all those songs. And I said, okay. And I took him at his word, and I chased him around about 6 months. And I'm doing little odd jobs, you know, and I used to wash dishes and stuff. It ain't really nice, but anyhow, I chased him around, and finally one night, Captain Midnight's a friend of mine, he's a disc jockey there, a very popular guy. He managed to get me into a session of Waylon's at the RCA, I believe it was that big one, and Waylon didn't like me because he'd run every time he'd see me. And he knew he'd made me a promise, but he didn't want to keep it. And Waylon found out I was there, and he sent Midnight back with a $100 bill, just folded up into a little bitty square, and said, "Give this to him and tell him to get lost." And so I looked at that and I thought, wow. Because I was broke. I could have used it. But I told him, I said, here, tell him to stick this where the sun don't shine and twist it, you know. And he goes back, and it ain't long. Waylon comes out of there. He's mad as hell. And there's a bunch of hangers-on and groupies and people like that all up and down the hall, the long hall. And it's almost like a gunfight deal. He comes out of there, but he's got 2 bikers on each side. And he says, Hoss, what do you want? And I said, well, I'll tell you what I want. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If you don't listen to these songs, at least listen to them. I'm going to whip your ass right here in front of God and everybody.
Uh-oh, and that was that, right?
Yeah, and he took me into another room, though, and he told me, he said, you play me one song. If I like it, we can listen to another one. So, all right, so I played him Ain't No God in Mexico, I think it was. And he said, okay, let me hear another. And I played him Old Five and Dimers. He said, let me hear another. Then I played him, he already had Willie, and I played him Honky Tonk Heroes, and he slapped his leg, and he said, well, I know what I got to do. He went back in there and ran all those players off, brought his own band in, and began to record it, and that's how I got really started good. He did him good too.
Yeah, he did. It did do him well. And your latest album, Long in the Tooth, I happen to love the duet with Willie Nelson. So Hard to Be an Outlaw. And I'm going to paraphrase, but my favorite verse is singing about country roads. You've never been down. They say it's country, but that ain't the sound. It's enough to make a renegade want to terrorize the town.
Yeah.
I love that. So I have the feeling you're talking about new country music. Is that what this song's about?
It's gotten away from the foundation that it was, and we laid down a pretty good foundation for them. But young people are always going to experiment. And they kind of gotten way out on a limb, I think. That's just my opinion.
And how do you describe kind of the old country, original country, classic country?
Deadly honest and blunt, but happy, and it's got some kick to it. But this stuff they're doing is just kind of waves around. I don't know what it's doing. But the guys are doing it anyway, so that's the way it goes.
Well, I read that you think that everyone should write because it's the cheapest form of therapy. And so I wanted to know from you, what is your writing process like?
Well, I don't wish it was. I could tell you, but it's different every time. Sometimes I can write a song in 5 minutes, but God, there's no telling how long it's been rolling around inside of me. And then sometimes it takes me forever. Then sometime I'll write a song that I love so much I just won't let nobody else hear it. And I'll play with it for her. It's like a baby or something. You know, you love the bucktooth one just as much as you do the others. And I'll play with that thing for as long as I can, then I'll finally have to let it go. But it's all different to me, but my way of doing things is if I have something that's troubling me and I think it's worth it, I will lay it down on the table and write it out just like it's a letter to someone I love very much, and I don't want to bullshit them, you know. Everything's just honest as it can be, and that's the way I finish a lot of them.
Well, Billy Joe, thank you so much for being here today and for chatting with me. And thank you for watching. If you have not downloaded Billy Joe's latest album, Long in the Tooth, you should do that right now. And while you're doing it, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope at Twang TV. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Greer Howard, and we will see you next time.
That's the day that I was born in those years. Probably born in the country, yeah. They say my man left when same day that she had me, said she hit the road, never once looked back. And I just thought I'd mention my grandma's away pension is the reason I'm standing here today. I don't know if I'm lying, but I'm turning big. I'm waiting in hell for better days. On a fast train, I wasn't born yesterday. I did good persuasion, ain't good education, and I'm in the old street, this way I'll get there. Seems like taste it makes a waste every time. I declare to my soul, when you hear those acres grow, better know I'm gonna get my share of mine.